You're back on the AM show brought to you by Waylead Properties. And we have a conversation now with the Ghana Chamber of Shipping. In fact, the president joins the conversation. It's all about the maritime sector, transport in Ghana, and what is happening at our ports, what is happening as far as the industry is concerned, what challenges they are facing, and how government, through policy and otherwise, can alleviate their suffering or their plight. Joining me for a conversation, Stanley Ahorlu, he's President, Ghana Chamber of Shipping. He joins the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin, and good morning to your viewers this morning.
It's good to have you join us for this conversation. Yesterday at the Marriott Hotel, the Ghana Chamber of Shipping, in collaboration with other industry players, you put together the Alhaj Asuma Banda Memorial Forum. I just want to start off the conversation from there. Why that forum? What did you seek to achieve? Do you think you achieved what you sought to at the outset?
Once again, thank you very much for that. And we were honored to have you moderate one of the panels, and then also for Joy FM actually carrying that live. We were privileged to have that.
It was live on JoyNews.
It was live on JoyNews at prime time, so that was really good for us. Why that? Alaji, of course, was the live patron, and then also a co-founder of the chamber. And since his passing, we thought that this was a way to honor him as a chamber, bring to light or emphasize what he's been doing in terms of the maritime sector over the years. And I'm sure everybody knows Asuma Banda. But in terms of actually focusing on his achievements, his contribution to the maritime sector, and then also to highlight what private sector can achieve if given the opportunity to do so. Here's one example of the 2080 rule, which is basically 20% of the effort can achieve 80% of the outcomes. And so this is why we put that out. And then also not only to talk about his contribution, his initiations and the innovations he brought to the sector, but also to then delve into what the sector looks like now, what the needs are, what the future for the sector is, how important the sector is to our economy, and so on and so forth.
And let's take it from there. I mean, Asuma Banda is, I mentioned yesterday, the man, the myth, the legend. And yes, unfortunately, at the start of this month, he was called to glory. And being Muslim, it was very swift. And, we had to say our goodbyes to him. Amtrak Air and his contributions. Yes. So whether you're thinking aviation or shipping, he was there, among other things. But the industry, why is it where it is? What is the state of the maritime industry in Ghana today? And what are the major challenges you face?
Okay, the state of the maritime industry. I mean, to understand the industry, I think let me go a little bit into saying, the structure of it. So our international trade is heavily dependent upon the maritime industry. The aspect of the maritime industry that our international trade is dependent upon is the long-haul shipping, international shipping. So if we're bringing cargo from China, from Europe, we rely on shipping 95% of the transportation required to bring it into the country. We rely on that.
So whether it's grains,
automobiles, whether it's machinery, whether it's food, in fact, Ghana is a giant supermarket for other people's goods. That's the way I describe it, because simply we are import dependent. And therefore, 2023, for example, merchandise trade, Ghana's merchandise trade was over $30 billion. And the international maritime trade actually just goes alongside that, because the maritime trade was about $20 million in terms of how the means by which we brought it in, the cost by which the money we paid for bringing all the goods in. So that's international trade that's carried by sea. Now, there's the other aspect of the maritime sector, which is short sea shipping, local shipping, inland waterways, whether we are utilizing our inland waterways in transporting goods, in transporting people, whether we are actually trading with our neighbors. You know, we're talking about Nigeria, Ivory Coast. How do we trade with them? How do we carry that trade? Is it by sea? And so on and so forth. That's what's referred to as inland waterways, short sea shipping, or coastal shipping. Now, the international...
Which in Ghana would mostly be Takoradi.
Takoradi, we have two ports, so Takoradi, Tema, and then, of course, inland waterways, you know, the Volta, and so on and so forth. But, of course, we're trading with our neighbors somewhat. 16% of intra-African trade is what the number is now. Now, the state of the international maritime trade is quite good. We are dependent upon the multinational shipping lines, and we have port infrastructure that supports that. But as I've said, that aspect of international maritime transportation, or that the international trade, is important. We're paying for it. We're paying other people for that service.
In other words, what you're saying is it's a service, it is good, but it is largely predominantly foreign.
It's foreign.
Apart from tax revenue, as business people in Ghana, we're practically not benefiting
from it. You know, from a purely revenue point of view.
How did we set up a system like that? How did that happen?
Well, it's colonial. It stems from the colonial era. I mean, our countries, you know, started off with, first of all, our seas were used for, apart from fishing, local fishing, taking out slaves. So ports were created, forts and ports were created for the purposes of taking out our raw material. Initially started off also taking out slaves and so on and so forth. And then over the years, we've enhanced that, you know, exporting raw material, bringing in finished goods. We ourselves, after independence, but after independence, we did something fantastic. We saw the importance of maritime transport. In fact, the government saw how important maritime transport was not only for our economy, but for the security of the country. And
we brought in the Black Star.
We brought in the Black Star Line. We brought in the Tema shipyard. And we added another port, the Tema port. We built a whole city around Tema port to control our international trade and to benefit from that value chain. There's another thing that is very important in terms of economy and security. This is the supply chain. If your the products you consume, are further away from the consumption point, which the situation is now, then if you don't control the means of bridging that gap, then you're dependent upon others. Then your economy is essentially dependent upon others.
What you're also saying is that we are highly dependent on the major shipping lines.
We are.
And so if there was some embargo, for example, they decided to take us on or punish us, we would be
exactly
at their mercy.
At their mercy. Completely. Absolutely completely. And so this is why it's a security matter as well. You know, so if they decide not to serve your country, then if your food supply is imported, is further away in Ukraine or Russia, and you don't have the ships to bring them in, and you're depending on other people's ships, then if they decide not to provide that service, then you're literally at
Let's
sea.
not look far. Think fuel.
Exactly.
When it's processed,
when it's
then
processed.
brought back into the country.
Yeah, exactly.
If they shut down, your economy
simply shut. Exactly. And so, if those are the realities of our situation now, and so what we should be actually looking at long term is to ensure that what we need by way of consumption and production is not too far away from the country. And if it's far away, then we should control the means of bringing it in.
We should cut.
Yes. The supply chain.
There are two things to look at. One, we must produce more of what we consume, what we use here. But the other aspect is the very things we'll bring in. How then has government policy shaped where we are? There are a lot of policies, right?
Yeah.
What have they done to alleviate the situation? What more can be done to help this public-private partnership in building the industry in Ghana and for Ghana?
Yeah, there's what we're doing now is regulating. We have, regulatory infrastructure which is built around, again, international regulation. The IMO is the international regulator of the industry, and what we have done is basically just implement IMO regulations. And so we have institutions, apart from managing our own ports, and we have a statutory body that's doing that by way of regulating that and also playing in the sector. We also then have the Ghana Maritime Authority, Ghana Shippers Authority, and then we have Volta Lake Transport Company. It's a company, but it's a regulator as well. So what we're really doing is we're superintending over international transport services, global multinational transport system. We are basically superintending over.
We are not players.
We are not players.
We are merely overseeing what happens.
So when ships bring cargo to the ports, our port, Tema or Takrady, what happens from there? There's a whole host of things that does happen. But we have the ports, and we are focused on the ports because we are also heavily dependent upon the ports for our tax revenue. We've talked about the situation where tax revenue is more than 50% of what we get from the ports. So government is heavily dependent upon that. The investment is going into that. It's all well and good. So we have a very modern port system compared relative to the other countries.
But
that's not enough. The value chain for maritime transportation goes beyond ports. It really goes beyond ports. You should have the ship owning. The ships are the center of the maritime transport system. And we don't really have ships. We don't own ships. If you do have ships, then of course you're also talking about ship owners, ship management, chartering. You're talking about chandling. You're talking about all the services. Even ship agency, we don't even control that. We don't have that. That's all foreign. And so all of that money, that revenue that could possibly come from that part of the value chain is also left for others.
So what component? Because in yesterday's interaction, and I want us to lump a few things together because in the next 4 or so minutes we'll have to knock off. It appears that a chunk of the business, in fact, practically all of the business, if you look at the charges, if you look at engaging these foreign vessels and all of that, it means what comes to the Ghanaian businessman in the industry is about what percentage out of 100?
We are literally scratching the surface. I wouldn't even put it at 5%.
Not even at 5%.
Not even at 5%. We're at the fringes. So we're participating in logistics, freight forwarding, clearing of cargo, and so on, stevedoring.
But you're in your own country, you have a port, you're bringing goods in, but the foreigners control the market, and,
yes.
and you, the Ghanaians, are on the fringes. You're on the periphery. You don't matter like that, so to speak. You don't own ships. You're just providing.
Let me just give you an example. There are 2 areas of the market, the shipping market, that we could have seriously considered, and we shouldn't have left that out. We shouldn't have just allowed foreigners to take control of that. This is bulk shipping. We have the cargo. Every year we have about, average 700,000 or 1 million tons of cocoa being shipped out. That's our cargo. They go out on ships. We control the cargo. at the very least, Cocoa Board or the establishment of that sort should be able to encourage and develop a bulk shipping industry in Ghana. It's mind-boggling that we are not able to do that, and we are shipping out cocoa on other people's vessels. That's a lot of money we're giving away.
Right.
Liquid bulk also. We're consuming a lot of petroleum products and fuel. And that also we're giving away. If you talk about insurance, cargo insurance, as I said, we're consuming everything. We're importing everything literally that we consume. We pay insurance when we import these things in. Now, insurance on cargo has quite significant value, and that should have been kept in-house, literally. And we also, the terms under which we ship in, cost insurance and freight, means that we give the insurance away to foreign insurance companies when actually we need the insurance to apply here.
So the whole system has been wired to favor outsiders rather than moving forward. I'll get to what you think government can do in the immediate term, because Gerald Seidu, who is now in charge of the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, I believe, has spoken about some tax cuts and what is likely to come. But port charges, some victimization, like what I heard yesterday from Dr. Amwako Mensah. How do we get past these before you give me your final words?
Port charges, I mean, we need to streamline those charges. We need to look at them.
Why are they not working? For you, at least.
They, take, for example, container administration fees. I just give you one example where somebody goes and imports a cargo, a 20-footer container of cargo in, is brought into the country, you go to the shipping line to clear it. This is not part of your freight. You've already paid your freight. And then the local agent then demands that before you take the container out, you need to deposit cash of $80 thereabouts on one 20-footer container in order to in a situation where you return the container damaged, dirty, or not return it at all.
Is it $80 per container?
Per container. Cash. Now, why is that?
So if it's 10 containers, $800. If it's 100 containers, $8,000.
And then the shipper then has to go back after 3 weeks or something after returning the container to take that cash back. I mean, everywhere else, nobody deposits cash with a shipping line. What you're doing is what that should be is simply insurance to cover damage to the container if you don't return it, some form of insurance to cover cleaning a loss and things like that. Just depositing cash. You're giving cash to the shipping line to keep interest free. Providing them liquidity for their business. But the burden on the shipper in terms of this sum of money is quite heavy. If you look at it cumulatively, that's a lot of money being given to shipping lines just to run their business.
So the question now is, and this will be your final bit, where do we go from here? What are your expectations when it comes to government policy and you yourselves in the industry? Final words on that.
I think government policy has to, first of all, as we said yesterday at the forum, that this industry is best run by the private sector. So government has to encourage private sector participation. Government also has to look at these laws and administrative procedures to make it easier for business to be carried out within this sector. And then also some import substitution measures have to be put in place to ensure that some of this money that is going out be clawed back, as I always say, claw back a lot of money as an import substitution measure. This is very important. And then also government has to look, short sea shipping inland waterways, this is where our strength, our comparative advantage is. And we have to look at the region continentally. We have to work with the continent to create a single market in order to allow for short sea shipping to thrive, coastal shipping to thrive, because our future depends upon that. If we can get our production, the things we need from our neighbors, and trade with our neighbors, and transport will engender that kind of trade. And so this is the way to go. As for long haul shipping, it's a global system. We need to make sure that it benefits us. We need to make sure that it's not expensive. We need to make sure that the best standards and practice are adhered to here, and as in the other parts of the world where the same industry players are serving. There's nothing wrong with global shipping. That's the establishment of it. But we need to make sure that the best standards are practiced here as well.
Well, we shall keep giving you a voice. We hope that the actors that be, including you, will put your shoulders to the wheel, and that things will change for the better, and that we can do more for Mother Ghana.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. And
thank you for joining the conversation. And that is Stanley Ahorlu, President, Ghana Chamber of Shipping. But we're taking a breather here. When we come back, there are more conversations coming your way. The Media Foundation for West Africa and gender. What have they been up to? We'll be telling you more after the break.